So we're going to learn in the Lekutei Sichos Chelik Gimel. There is, I think it's Chelik Gimel. This Chelik. We're going to learn the second or third Sicha. What the reason why we're starting from the middle is not really in the middle, but in that Chelik, it's like in the other Chalakim you have Sicha Aleph on the part, Sicha Beis. Gimel here it's without any Kepler. So the Nekudas Ha'inyan is that it becomes the Nekuda is what is the Chayis of a Yid, because it says Vayimaros Chayehem, and based on that, how can it be that the Mitzrayim should make Vayimaros Chayehem? It's not Shaykh such a thing. It says in thst, Chayav Hamitim Shal Adam Yisrael Einam hachayim hagashmim kima ruchnim. That's the first thing. Now, what is the inyan of the Yid? Is ruchnis the life. The fizem mugen shakshatoyim saperes vayimaros chayim v'goymer pirushay noisav al pshuta shemikra shein mikriyetzim de pshuta. Obviously, it means in the simple sense that a taka had done that made tzaras for the Yid. But if you're talking about the chayim of a Yid, which the chayim of a Yid is a chayim ruchnim, Mitzrayim made it was Chayim Haruchnim Shal Bnei Yisrael, Aydei Avodah Kosher Shal B'Chomer L'Vein. And this is what's going to bother the Rebbe. How can it be such a thing that you could make bitter the real life of a Yid? The real life of a Yid is Ruchnius. How can a Mitzri with his Avodah Kosher and everything affect the real life of a Yid, which is Ruchnius? V'tzarech L'havin, V'tzarech Bir. Efsher, Aydei Avodas Parech, L'mares Chachayim Hagash. Aber keitzad yechoyla avodah kasher b'chaymer loveinim l'marer es chayav aruchnim shal Yehudi. Hein emes sh'avodah kasher yechoyla la'afriya l'chayim aruchnim. It could put obstacles in the way. If I have a lot of stuff in my head, it's hard to concentrate. L'limrat Torah v'kim ha'mitzvahs avoloshon ha'kosav hu v'yimareru es chayehem. It doesn't say that they made it difficult for them. It doesn't say that they're doing Torah mitzvahs as something difficult, but their chayim ruchniim became bitter. It itself was something wrong with their ruchnias. Loi medubar al kach Avodas Parech ifriya l'chayim ruchnias kim gam sha'chayim haruchniim atzmom nasim marim bitter. Keitzadim keinis maru chayim ruchniim aydei Avodas Parech gashmis. So, to be able to understand this, he's going to bring from a halacha concerning Avodas Parech that by an Eved. We talk about that there was Mitzrayim Avodas Parech, and we say there's an Isser min HaTorah to make an Eved that a Yid has do an Avodas Parech. So what is the definition of Avodas Parech? It's a halacha to also lead this Eved Ivri. By Avodas Parech, Mefarish HaRambam, Sha'akavon hi la'avoda she'ein la kitzva ve'ein la te'elis. So let's say if a master tells his Eved, go into that field and just keep on over there cleaning it up until I come back. He doesn't tell them, I want you to clean for an hour. I want you to cut the wheat for an hour. But says, whenever I'll come back, keep yourself busy. When I come back, then you'll stop. Or when I tell you to stop, then you'll stop. That's called Avodas Parech. The fire by Goyes Maimon is, how do we know that this is the definition of Avodas Parech? So he says, "Shadavar nilmad ma'avodas parech she'avdu bnei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim. Bekach she'avodas parech she'hoysu b'Mitzrayim hi avoda she'ein lo kitzva ve'ein lo te'elis." Because what they did in Mitzrayim was a type of avoda that Taka had no end to it and had no benefit. And therefore, just like in Mitzrayim, we called it that they worked b'avodas parech. So therefore, when we talk about Eved Ivri, that the Rambam says, brings from the pasuk that you cannot do avodas parech, so therefore, it's also the same meaning. Based on that, we could start understanding how there could be vayimaros chayim. Efshel lahavin keitzad miras chayim aruchnim shel bnei Yisrael v'Mitzrayim. Adam oisik b'inyanim gashmim k'nidush al pitoira hareizu avoida sheyesh lo kitzva v'te'elis. I go to work. Torah said, like we're going to bring the pasuk, Beracha Hashem Elokecha b'chol shetasavach. So I have a job, and the job has an end to it. I work 9 to 5. I have a certain type of limit on my mind This is how long I work. The rest of the time, I have to do other things. הוא צריך להסעסק באש כפרנסה רק עד כמה שנדרש לעשות כלי לברכת הוויה. ובמילא ישנה הגבלה לגבי הכוחות שבהם יכול להשתמש לשם כך. First of all, you're supposed to work as much as is necessary. And therefore, the energy that you invest in it is also limited. Like the famous thing that Rebbe always brings down, Yigia kapecha kisoichal, Yigia sakapayim, it has to be the work of your hands. Somewhere else, I remember the Rebbe says, it doesn't mean that you can't use your head in your business. It doesn't mean that, let's say, if you're a businessman, that you have to use your head, you shouldn't use your head. But it means in a way of excessively preoccupying yourself with it, in a way of yigiyah. So it's okay if your hand is tired. It's okay if your arm is tired. It's okay if your leg is tired from working. But if your mind is wiped from working, that might be something to reconsider about how much of your mind you're investing in your work. Not just the koiches, but also how much time. When you have a limitation set on it, maybe ha'esek tell us. Kivin shu'oisik ba'ifin ha'roi al pi Torah, nasa ha'tasa shaloi kli le'beracha v'aylakecha. Beracha v'aylakecha b'chol shetasa. So if you do the tasa according to the way Torah limits the person in the tasa, so then there's the bracha of Hashem. But if the tasa is not according to the instructions of the Eibishter, it's more than Yigia Kapecha, it's an avodah she'ein lo kitzva ve'ein lo te'eles, so then it's not going to be the Beracha Hashem Elokecha. Loi kein kasher adam esas leparnasasa b'yigia roisher shemechapes eitzis v'sakbulos larviach yoyser v'yoyser. I'm sorry, it's not going to be the connection with Hashem Elokecha. A person can sometimes be matzliach, but it's not going to be the connection with Hashem. Hareizu avodah she'ein lo kitzva ve'ein lo te'elis. So the question is, why is it ein lo te'elis? The harder I work, the more time I invest, the more energy, the more of my mind I invest in it, the more I'm matzliach. So he says, Te'elis ein bezek shenemar loy lahachamim lechem. I remember the Rebbe quoting this by Fabrengen once, and he said that the Gvirim zol mer moichel sein. But that's what it says. I'm just quoting what it says. In other words, what the Rebbe was also saying is the charaya fakert. He said something like that. Since it says loy lachamim lechem, so it's a proof that someone does have. So the Rebbe says the gvir moichel sein. Says as haparnasa harei nois nakadosh baruch hu v'tachbulas ha'adam lo ye'ilukan. So he's mitzayin to derech tesech on the bottom, a very well-known quote. The Rebbe often brings this down from the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek in Mitzvahs Tiglachas Mitzrayim says, over there he actually speaks specifics about how and how much you're supposed to invest in work and how to calculate it and to what degree. And one of the things he says is if a person, since the parnasa is only supposed to be a keli and a levush for the Eibishter, and he goes into explaining why b'chlal do I have to work? Why can't the Eibishter give me directly? Because he wants that it should be hidden in this world. So in truth, since the parnasa is coming from the Eibishter, and the only reason I'm working is because Hashem wants it to be hidden in this world, so I don't have to make bigger levushim. And the Tzemach Tzedek says, just like if a person has a small levush, it's not going to work. A person could think he's going to make a bigger levush. But the levush is going to be the asiyah of the maisa of the work that he's doing. If it's a bigger levush, it's better. Not that way. If you wear longer pants, you'll trip over it. Literally, Tzemach Tzedek says, a longer garment, well, you could be nichshel in it. So adrab, if a person does more and puts more koiches into something, so then it's a problem, and it could interfere. So that's the ein lo te'elis. because the extra work doesn't add anything. V'gam ein lo kitzva, ein shir liyagia kazu. If a person thinks that his intellect and his avodah and the more he works is going to bring in more money, so then there's no stopping. Every single moment, his mind is the whole time spinning for ideas and how to make a buck. Ba'erev ha'oivdim v'aschirim halchul b'teyim higia shas nil sa'esek achu Baal Habayis adayin oimid v'choyshev oidas ha'esek. His mind is still spinning. He's still thinking about the esek. V'gam k'shagoyim rasakav v'shav l'beisay hari b'makim she'elek k'viyas limit Torah nigla v'chsidus, which is what he should be doing. That's a kitzvah. Work is over. Now it's time to learn. Hari Mitzrayim. And the Mitzrayim running around and rushing around could be in one or two ways. Either b'poil, he's actually physically running around, or mentally his mind is on the run. Daniel used an expression to Nebuchadnezzar that the way it's normally done is when you go to sleep, your ideas leave your mind, because when you go to bed, you put it out of your mind. But this person ain't like kitzvah. There's no stop by him. Even when he's in bed, especially these days that we have the phone in the palm of our hand, we can mamish nishna. Our mind is working. Pasha literally do work in the bed. It's understood. So even not only didn't he stop, but even when he's asleep, you think finally, okay, these 6 hours he's in bed, these 5 hours he's in bed, these 8 hours he's in bed, he's off. He's not off, because the mind will keep on reviewing and rethinking in his dreams things from the day. Like it says in the Gemara that Ein Adam Chaylam, the person only dreams from things that he thinks about during the day. As a side thing, I remember hearing from a Mishpia, Melech Tzvivel once said about why did the Eibishter give us the inyan of going to sleep. The whole purpose of a Yid is to serve the Eibishter. So if you're serving the Eibishter, why did the Eibishter make it that a third of our life we're asleep? More or less. Younger more, older less, but that's what comes out. It makes no sense. Mela, other things, but sleeping. So he brought down two in Yonim. One thing is, I've seen from the Rebbe in other places, that the only way you could appreciate life and realize that things start anew is if you have an off time, when sleep closes. So then, Chadash lo b'karim, you become new, it starts all over again. But another thing he said is, I could know if I was really, he was talking to a Bochur, how do I know that I was really involved in learning during the day? Whatever I dream by nights, I know. If in Yodim of Torah is in my mind, so then that's a gauge, that's a simon that by day I was involved in learning the way it's supposed to be. But what you see is that a lot of times by Baal Habayis, the mind doesn't shut off even by night. So therefore, it's Avodas Parech, it's Vaymoros Chayim, because we said Avodas Parech is an Avodah Shein Lo Kitzvah. Now I could say an interesting thing. Up till now, we were picking on the Baal Habayis. What about a Yeshiva Bochur? This whole thing seemingly doesn't apply to a Yeshiva Bochur. Someone that's sitting in Yeshiva and learning, by him this applies. He says, Gam l'gab a Yeshiva Bochur, to tochen mitzias doima, how's that possible? Gam im eine shakua ba'esek, hu yochel li is shakua b'kovid ha'meduma v'kiyotze b'zeh. That's what's occupying his mind. Shema poga by mishu, maybe somebody didn't act towards him with the appropriate kavod ha'teira. V'hu arei talmid chacham, v'im kein tzarechul lishmer ha'kavod ha'teira. That's his job. He has to make sure that people keep kavod ha'teira. V'kivim tzadikim doim le'boidom al v'leches b'darkei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ukeshem HaKadosh Baruch Hu kiviyachol meshalem mida keneged mida, gam hu tzarech lisnai kein v'lovei cheshbon manal that didn't act with appropriate kavod ha'teira towards him, so he's got to pay him back. So that's what's preoccupying his mind. V'im kavod ha'teira yaketz lebiyoser So then, all of L'Shalom Lahu Keifel Harbav Chamisha, he doesn't have to pay him tit for tat, but even more so. Ubezeh Oiskes Aisekes Machshavte Kola Eis. V'gam kishahoylech lishen mizbata bezeh cheshbon hanefesh shaloi lifnei hashena. Like we know, Chassidim always talk about the idea. Chassidus talks about Krishna Shalmit is the time for cheshbon hanefesh. By this Yoshev Oil, his cheshbon hanefesh is was someone what's doing with kavod HaTorah. U'muvan shadavar mashpia gam achar kach al chol moisav. What is he dreaming about by night? Kishadam chaysh val shmiras b'rias gufay oisa zois mistam et cheshbon. What is he thinking about? He yois haguf bar v'shol medarche Hashem, who, like the Rebbe says, that in the correct girsas of the Rambam, it's medarche avodas Hashem. This is a quote from the Rambam. Ubefrat oy dem lamet chassidus v'yedei maimer al Hashem to al posik aziv taziv imoy. Who do you have to help out? Who is the imoy? The chamor seinacha that you have to help out. The Baal Shem Tov says imaguf. You have to help out the body. V'yedei gam anam betanya sheis guf ha-Yehudi Bochur HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmai. Then when it says ubonu b'charto mikol am v'loshen, who is the bechira of the Eibishter? Only in the body, because the neshama, there's nothing like it by goyim. So you can't say ubonu b'charto mikol am v'loshen l'gabe the neshama v'yid. The only place where it's shaykh bechira is by the body of a yid, because the body of a yid looks similar to the body of a goy. So therefore, harikiv sheguf Yehudi u'koy yakar by Hashem. So therefore, a person that's involved in looking for taking care of his body, that's not going to be a problem of something she'ein lo te'elis. Yes, b'chol zeh te'elis, there's still a benefit in this. But when it comes to matters of business, that the truth is, Ulai, the way people are so obsessed with health and with exercise and looking fit and good, Ulai Yeshloim are the same problem as Bad Brias. But they never said this like in the 50s and the early 60s when the Shagas of health didn't take hold of people so much. So, so there's a person that wants to take care of his health. So the Rebbe says there's a teyelas and there's also a kitzvah, there's an end to it. So there's both things. You don't have an end to it, like we said, and it has no benefit. So therefore, it falls under the category what the Rambam calls an Avodas Parech. So now we can understand L'gab our parshim. Zoya kavona sheba avodas perech miriru es achayim aruchnim shel bnei Yisrael. Kol ma shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam hare yesh lo gvul v'cheshbon. Minayin yochel lovei inyan leloi hagbala ein lo kitzvah uleloi cheshbon ein lo te'elis. The Rebbe says when you say something has no benefit, that means there is no, direct. Ever since I heard this expression, ROI, there's no return on investment. That's the idea of Ein L'Te'elis, that's the idea of Ein L'Cheshbon. In Avodas Hashem, Haruchnim, there could be a level of an Avodah that has no end to it, like I'll soon explain, and it's also beyond Cheshbon. It's not something that's like, I do this, I get Gan Eden, it's something way beyond that idea. Me'an Nefesh Ho'elokis dafke. The fact that there could be in Klippen le'umazan avodah she'ein lo kitzvah ve'ein lo te'elis, that's because in Ruchnis, in Nefesh Ho'elokis, there is something like that. So therefore, there is nishtal shalos in the Nefesh Bahamis. Ki ha-Nefesh Ho'elokis kshura ma'kadosh baruch hu v'hu harei ein mugbal. Lachen gam b'neshama yeshnam koiches bilti mugbalim shem l'mayla mecheshben v'gvul. What type of example is a koyach that has no hagbalas? The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya and Perikut Ches and Perikut Tes that the fact that a Yid is willing to give up his life for the Eibishter, that doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not al pi cheshbon. It's like ein lo te'elis. A Yid doesn't give up his life al Mesiras Nefesh because he wants more Gan Eden. A Yid's Mesiras Nefesh is it's a knee-jerk reaction. He can't help it. Like the Alter Rebbe says, it's a teva b'chol b'nei Yisrael b'tol doisam Teva means something that's not calculated. And that's why we find a big difference that by lahavdil, other people that are willing to give up their lives for their principles and for their beliefs or their religions, it's usually the most fanatic one. The most religious, that person is going to give up their life for it. Or the most devoted to whatever type of principle, that's the people that will give up their life. But the Alter Rebbe brings down in Tanya that by a Yid, the idea of Mesiras Nefesh is to be found by Ktanim and Amaratzim, and people that are not known as being the most chassidish people are ready to give up their lives, and it's without thinking. Why? Because Mesiras Nefesh is not a logical thing, it's not a calculated thing, but it's something that's a teva that's beyond Tam V'das. So that's why the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh is an example of something l'loy tayelos, meaning l'loy cheshbon. Ve'efshar la'gia ha'yidei zem ad la'avoida she'ein b'zeh tayelos avoida l'shma b'tachlis. This type of avoida, the koyches of a yid that comes mitzad the Eibishter, he can also have the whole musik of avoida l'shma. When a person serves because he wants to have a chelik of olam haba, he wants to have Gan Eden, or he wants to have im b'chokos telechu v'nasati gishmechem be'itam, so then it's a te'elis. It's quid pro quo. I'll do this, and Hashem will take care of me for that. Or something's going to be fakert. If I don't do such and such, or if I do such and such, well, a clap. Comes the avoida l'shma and says, what's it mean? Loi tiyo kavod Rav Shamshon es Rav Amnas l'kabel pras, ella shaloi amnas l'kabel pras. That's not, I'm not here for te'elis. I'm not here for my gain. That comes because the Yid is mushish and Hashem that's without Akbola, so therefore his avoid is without Akbola as well. Avol, kasher noitlim es ha-koyches shal Nefesh Ho'elokis. This powerful koyach, umishtamshem behem b'le'umazeh, they use the koyach of doing things with loy te'elis and b'li gvul, and invest it in the other side. Samim choshech la'oir, va'oir la'choshech, samim mar la'masik, and masik la'mar, and they invested in Avodas Parech. I think it's a very gishmaka way, the way he's typing this pasuk, or this phrase. The samim choshech la'oir, in the simple meaning is, they say darkness is light, and they say that light is darkness. It's like the UN, a place of darkness. They say that the bitter is sweet, and they say the sweet is bitter. The Rambam, he brings here, the Rambam, I think, here brings the Sefer Tshuva, but the Rambam says that, I think it's in the Rambam in Madan Yisodei HaTorah, that a sick person, by him, what's tasty tastes horrible, and what tastes horrible tastes good. Here he's saying that he actually makes the darkness into light, meaning he takes an inyan of klippe, and he's investing it and using the koyach of kedusha. He's taking the koyach of bligvul of kedusha and putting it into klippe. Ba'avodas Parech she'ein lo gvul ve'ein lo te'elis. Now we finally have the answer on what he asked at the beginning. The chayis of a yid is get l'chay, the chayis of a yid is holocaust. And here, you're by doing the avodah of Mitzrayim, of Avodas Parech, like the Rebbe always talks about, that they threw him into the Nile, the Avodah Zarah of Mitzrayim, the idea of the Nile of America is the Avodah Zarah of working to make a living, Machan al-Leben, and all these things. So by throwing oneself into that, so they make the chayis of Nefesh Ho'elokis bitter. Not only when he takes his koyach habligvul of his Nefesh Ho'elokis, and he invests it into klippe and uses that for avodah b'loy te'elis b'loy kitzvah, but also in a more edler way. Umenatzel omnam es hachayis haruchni l'inyan kedusha v'loy l'inyan olam hazeh. Aval einay menatzel zois letzoyrach ha'avoida hamutelos alav ad she'adraba yesh ba mishum afro l'avodosei. The Rebbe a lot of times brings down the taich that what's considered Avodah Zarah doesn't have to mean always bowing down to idols. Avodah Zarah means doing an avodah shehi zara loy. An avodah that's not meant for him. L'chol adam noyed shlichus mishaloi shalamana yarda nishmasa lamata. Kasher yitzahara roitza la'afriya loy ma'avodasoi v'yedei yahu she'im yinasa lefatoisoi she'yafsik legamri lasik b'avodas Hashem lo yatzliach. Yitzahara knows, just to tell this guy that's involved in Avodas Hashem, stop doing your Avodah. It's not going to work. You tell a Ben Torah, stop learning, he's not going to do that. You tell a Chassidish Yid, don't daven, he's not going to do that. So he has to find a tricky way to be able to undermine our Avodah by convincing us to do something that was not meant for us. That's the worst thing. When the Yitzhahara agrees to our Avodah, then it's a problem. He agrees that you should serve the Eibishter, but do it my way. You know what? Go do that. You're sitting and learning. You're davening now in a minyan. No, stop. Go do this other thing. The fakert, you're doing this other thing. Plutzlung, he's going to say, Faveltechem, learn Ablat Gemara. Bechlolus, Nechlakim, Bnei Yisrael, Shnei Sugim. Those are the two general categories. Aleph, Yoshvei Oil, Ubefrat Talmidei Yeshiva students, Sheikir and Yonam who limit HaTorah. That's their purpose. That's their entire being. Amram Tzrichim Lasik, Bekavshel Gmils Chasadim. The Rebbe always brings down that there's the Maimer Chazal, Kol Misha Omer, that he's only going to be Isaac in Torah, Afilu Torah Einloi. He needs to be Isaac also in Gmils Chasadim. So therefore, Yeshiva Bochur, what does that mean for him? How is he going to be Isaac in Gmils Chasadim? So the Rebbe says, even Yeshiva Bochur has to have this in the Tzedakah, Gashmias, Baruchnias, physically, epis, something you could give to tzedakah, a coin or whatever. And also Baruchnias, by helping out another Yid, Baruchnias, teaching another Yid. Or Befrat, one of the ways how you're doing Gmils Chasadim, Hafat Samayonis. Within the world of Torah, you're spreading Torah, and then you have the Torah and the Gmils Chasadim. Why? Oh, here's the quote. People in yeshiva, Bochrim, their main avodah has to be, and that has to be involved in Torah, not saying all of a sudden, I'm going to spend my whole day doing Mitzrayim, putting on film with people. Baal Habayis, because the other way around. Iker in Yana Mukiyam mitzvahs. Iker mitzvahs maisis and mitzvahs tzedakah. The Rebbe always brings down that in the Yerushalmi it says, when it uses the word mitzvah in the Yerushalmi without saying what mitzvah they're talking about, it's talking about the mitzvah of tzedakah. Because tzedakah is the main part of all the mitzvahs, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, that you do not have a greater elevation of sparks, of mitzutzas, than you have in the mitzvah of tzedakah. So tzedakah is the epitome of all mitzvahs. So someone, that's a Baal Habayis, that's a businessman, that his main job is to be involved in mitzvahs, which means the mitzvah of tzedakah. He has to be lost tzedakah begashmis. Ulahafitz bayanas ayadus, Torah v'chsidus. He also has to do the tzedakah beruchnias, which means spreading Yiddishkeit. Tzedakah beruchnias. He can't just do that. He also has to have set aside times for learning Torah. So now he's going to talk about, that's the way things are supposed to be. Then you have Avodas Parech. You have the person going into something that he shouldn't be doing. You're blurring the lines. Neshamas that are lost. There's a very famous story, the Baal Shem Tov ben again, Neshamas Hatoyis, that there was once up as a poor person that came to shul. They used to be like in the back of the shul. If any guests were there, They used to hang around the back of the shul, and the rich person used to then invite them and bring them home. This Shabbos, the rich person wasn't there, as we'll soon see why, what happened. So this poor person took him home. Friday night, he comes in tow with 10 people into his house. He barely has a piece of food to eat himself. He has to slice and dice whatever little piece of food he has, and he divides it between the other 10 Aramalite. What happened to the rich man? Where was he? He was on the road. Rich people in those days didn't work out. They weren't used to manual and physical labor. He saw a balagola. His wagon broke down, was stuck in the mud. It's out of Shabbos. He felt bad for him. So he decided he's going to go out and have to help a Yid. A Jew is like suffering, got to help him out. So he went, started schlepping out the wagon. And if he didn't help, he might have even made it worse because he doesn't know what he's doing. In the meantime, he got home all filthy and all sahakt and saklap. And instead of being able to invite the poor people, he wasn't even able to make it to shul. Who should have been over there on the road helping out the balagola? This poor person, because the poor people usually have to work hard, they have them kaiches. But the rich person should have been in shul, schlepping the poor people that need a place to eat. I think the Baal Shem Tov called it neshamas hatoyis. These neshamas, by no fault of their own, they didn't really do anything terribly wrong, but they managed, there was a miscommunication, a misalignment, and they managed to avegein in the wrong direction. So the Rebbe says the same thing with this Yeshiva Bochur and this Baal Asik could be a gather of neshamas hatoyis. Bnei Adam she'einam roitzim lemalis hatafkid shehutel aleim umechapsim inyanim hashayachim la'acherim. That is neshamas hatoyis. Yeshnam balibatim shakashenitvoim l'nsinus hatzdaka v'fotzam hayonis. You go over to Baal Boss, you say, you know what? It's time, open up your purse, open up your wallet, it's time to give money. Einim heim shedavke ke'eis einim yichoyim lahakdish mizman lezulas. I can't spend time now on someone else. Mishum shazman dorish lam la'atzmam. Now is the time that I sit in my office, I lock the door, the kids don't bother me, lefeto u'nasa marich betfilah, masmid belimud, ula'achar hasmada, mucher chularis la'isik. So first, I can't talk to you now about any tzedakah issues, because now I'm davening, now I'm learning, now I have my kviyas itul Torah. And when I'm done, I also can't talk to you because I got to run out to the business. But the flip side of it, the neshamas hatoyis by the Yeshiva Bochur, gam yeshnam yoshvei oil and talmidei yeshivas, ha'iskim b'tzedakah davke b'zman ha'kavua l'limud ha'torah, which the Rebbe did not like. That when Bochur did that, they took off time from learning. The whole point was Friday afternoon davke, when Bochur and other yeshivas, and yeshivas throughout the world, do not have Seder, so on Lubavitch, Friday afternoon, we took off our free time and we went on Mitzrayim. But it wasn't to go in the middle of Seder. Well, itim kroivos, darkum shalelu haneshamas, haneshamas hatoyis, shedavke bekavasheni, she'enu shayach lahem, hare hisaskusom, hi bemeretz v'chayis. You'll see a very strange thing. The balabas that's supposed to be helping out somebody, and he's all of a sudden davening, and he's all of a sudden he has his kviyas. It's with a gishmak. It's with passion. It's exciting. Or the same thing, the Bochur that leaves the middle of Seder to go do Mitzrayim. It's really good. Avorak b'schila, the Rebbe says. It's only initially. Va'af omnam he minyan kedusha. Avol kiven she'ein ze tafkid shel neshama zu harei ze inyan shevayimarurus chayeyem. This is like powerful words, the Rebbe says. If Yeshiva Bochur is going with time in the middle of Seder, it's considered his Nefesh Ho'elokis is in the way of Vayimarus Chayayim. Ki menatzlim es achai shal Nefesh Ho'elokis li'inyanim she'eina tafkida ad u'ba'ifna mafriim l'tafkid. So the Rebbe brings down in Ha'ara 40, he says a very interesting thing. Mevatlin, it says Talmud Torah for whatever it talks about over there in Ksubis. Mistama talks about Achnosas Kala. There's different expressions that says Mevatlin Talmud Torah for these particular things. So the Rebbe explains, and perhaps it's based on this Tosfos that he's Mitzrayim to. Why do you call it being mevatel Torah? Bittul Torah is called when I'm just sitting around and instead of learning, I'm just wasting my time. But why would this be considered bittul Torah? I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Lepoil, if I'm doing something that I'm not in general meant to do, it's called bittul Torah. The Rebbe even extends it to something else that says mevatlin Talmud Torah b'nei Mikra Megillah. What do you mean? Mikra Megillah is one of the Chavdal Sifrei Kodesh. It's part of Torah learning. How do you call it mevatlin Talmud Torah? So that's also called mevatlin Talmud Torah because the real idea of Limud Torah is to learn as deep as you can. Mikra Megillah is only superficial. It's only shitchias. So therefore, it's also called mevatlin Talmud Torah. Baal Habayis, what the Rebbe is saying is that a person can do good things, not bad things, but it's not what he is meant to do. So then it's considered Vayimaros Chayim, their Nefesh Ho'elokis, their Chayis Ho'elokis is in the way of being bitter. Shum kach gam hois hayetzia megolos Mitzrayim ayde mishchu k'chulachem, it says. Bekach shalakhu es Avodah Zarah shel Mitzrayim keves v'shachtu oisoi la'eni ha-Mitzrayim shedavar zeh ba'arei mekoyach she'ein lo kitzva. This, you remember we said before that koyach ha-Mesiras Nefesh has no limitation. Mesiras Nefesh olamayil matam v'das. To go in front of the Mitzrayim themselves, tie up the seh, shech the seh, which was their Avodah Zarah, was completely on koyach ha-Mesiras Nefesh, completely beyond tam v'das. So with that, im zeh nitzlos toikef ha-Nefesh Ho'elokis v'ishtamshu boi b'mekoymei ha-nachen. They repaired it. They extracted, it was the Zelu Mazeh, the Midah Keneged Midah into Kedusha. Instead of having the Nefesh Ho'elokis invested in an in of Mirur, they used out the Koichus of Nefesh Ho'elokis. Ketziv HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'zeh Hevias HaCherus, Ka'aloshin Shal Tikuni Zoyar. The Tikuni Zoyar says a very interesting thing. What does Cherus mean? Cherus mitifshusa. It's not typish. That sometimes you need to free yourself. Now we're soon going to be starting learning Basi Lagani, Shtus the Kedusha. Now we start freeing ourselves from Shtus. What does it mean? The opposite of Shtus is that they had their mind hooked up in the right direction. There's an expression that says we make the Beracha of Havdalah in Shemon Esrei by Maidev, we make it in Choin Hadas. So the Gemara says, why? Because im ein das Havdalah minayin. To be able to distinguish between different things, you need to have das. For a person to be able to distinguish what he should be investing his mind in, what he should be focused on, that's the das. That's what he had to do over here. Instead of being by Moros Chayim, Mekach ba hagula gam begashmias.